You can feel the air before you see the chaos. It's thick in your throat, a gritty cocktail of pulverized concrete, damp earth, and something metallic and sharp, like old blood. This is Chicago, but not the one of postcards. This is a wound torn open in the city's side, a collapsed structure where sirens wail a constant, desperate song. Shouts echo, sharp and frayed, lost in the groaning of stressed steel and the unsettling silence that falls between the waves of noise. Dust clings to your skin, a fine gray shroud, and the chill of the afternoon bites through your jacket, a cold reminder of the fragility of everything around you. Every sound is magnified, every shadow seems to move, with a life of its own. It is a place where order has died, and you are standing right in the middle of its wake, a silent witness to the unfolding failure. In the center of this maelstrom stands Sergeant Mark Sullivan. You watch as his face, etched with lines of exhaustion and fierce concentration, becomes a mask of raw tension. His knuckles are white where he grips the useless leash. His voice, when he screams, is not the composed command of a leader, but the cracked, desperate plea of a man watching his world crumble. Adrenaline has sharpened every feature, but it's a brittle edge, threatening to shatter. You see the shame searing him as the eyes of his squad, his brothers in arms, fixate on him and his disobedient partner. For a man forged in the unbending steel of discipline, this public breakdown of control is a personal hell, a louder failure than any collapsing beam or escaping suspect. He is an island of rigid control in an ocean of chaos, and his foundations are rapidly eroding. The order is ripped from his lungs, a sound meant to cut through any distraction. "Bravo, move!" Again he bellows the command, the words a physical force. But the dog, his canine partner, his loyal shadow for 6 decorated years, remains absolutely still. You see Bravo, a magnificent German shepherd, a living machine of perfect obedience, anchored to the spot. His powerful muscles tremble, not from fear, but from a profound internal conflict that makes his entire body vibrate. A low whine escapes his throat, a sound of pure anguish that Mark has never heard before. This isn't defiance as you know it. It's a complete system failure, a glitch in a perfect program, and it's happening at the worst possible moment. The dog is staring at a dark pile of rubble, completely ignoring the man he has always worshipped. Mark's frustration is a burning coal in his chest, radiating a heat that fogs his judgment. Shame licks at him, hot and immediate, under the weight of his team's silent stares. Every second that ticks by is another layer of failure laid at his feet. He built his career on precision, on the unwavering certainty of the bond between handler and canine. That bond was his shield, his reputation, his undeniable truth in a world of variables. Now, in front of everyone, that truth is disintegrating. He can feel their pity, their confusion, and worse, their doubt. The question hangs in the air, as heavy and suffocating as the dust. Why is the most loyal, most decorated dog on the force betraying his handler when everything is on the line? The silence from his partner is the loudest accusation of all. You try to see what Bravo sees, to understand the force that holds him captive. The dog's world has shrunk to a single point of intense focus. The sirens, the shouts, the frantic energy of the humans around him have faded into a distant, irrelevant hum. His black nose twitches, deciphering a language of scent that is completely alien to you, a story being told on the air currents that swirl through the debris. It's a scent more compelling than years of conditioning, more urgent than the desperate commands of the man he loves. He is no longer K9 Unit 73, an extension of law enforcement. He is an ancient predator, a guardian, answering a call so primal and so profound that it has overridden every circuit of his training, every fiber of his learned obedience. The building groans again, a deep, guttural sound from the earth, and a fresh shower of dust rains down. The situation is deteriorating with every breath. Protocol, the holy text by which Mark has lived his entire professional life, screams at him, "Evacuate! Fall back!" An order is an order. But his dog, his partner, is still frozen, a living statue of insubordination. The success of the entire operation, the safety of his team, and his own career are balanced on this single, terrifying moment of disobedience. The world Mark built, a world of straight lines, clear commands, and predictable outcomes, has been shattered by the one being he trusted never to break the rules. He is trapped between his duty and a loyalty he no longer understands. He takes a step toward his dog, his hand outstretched, his mind a chaotic battle of anger and disbelief. For years they were one mind, one purpose, moving through danger with an unspoken synchronicity. He knew every twitch of Bravo's ears, every subtle shift in his posture. He could read his partner better than he could read any human. But now, looking at the animal's rigid stance and unwavering focus, he sees a complete stranger. The connection, once a tangible current between them, is gone, replaced by a chasm of confusion. The trust that was the bedrock of their existence has been pulverized into the same gray dust that covers everything. And as he looks into the dog's unblinking eyes, he can't escape the terrifying question: what does Bravo know that he doesn't? You see him not just as a sergeant, but as a man who builds his life like a fortress, brick by methodical brick. His world is one of straight lines and sharp corners, a deliberate architecture against the chaos he fights every day. You can picture his apartment, Spartan and clean, where his boots are always polished and aligned, his uniforms hung with military precision. This isn't just tidiness, it's a survival mechanism. For Mark Sullivan, control is not a desire, it is a necessity, the only prayer he knows against the entropy of the streets. He believes that protocol is the thin, unbending wall that separates order from oblivion, safety from the screaming void. This rigid discipline is his armor, forged in the fires of 1,000 emergencies, where a single moment of hesitation could mean the end of everything. You understand that for him, an order is a sacred text, and to deviate is to commit a cardinal sin. This unwavering faith in structure, however, is also the source of his deepest vulnerability. You can almost feel the cold dread that grips him when things don't go according to plan, when the unpredictable nature of life breaches his carefully constructed defenses. It's a brittleness hidden beneath the steel of his command presence. You can imagine a memory that plays on a loop in his mind, a scar on his soul from a past mission, where a small, seemingly innocent deviation from protocol led to a catastrophic failure, a ghost that whispers to him in the quiet hours of the night, reminding him of the cost of improvisation. He clings to the rulebook like a drowning man clings to a raft, because in his experience, the currents of chaos are relentless and unforgiving. His greatest strength is also his most profound weakness, a rigid spine that can snap under too much pressure. But in this world of straight lines, there is one beautiful, undeniable curve: his bond with Bravo. This is the place where the strict geometry of his life softens. You can see them in the quiet moments after a long shift, the tense lines on Mark's face easing as he sinks into his worn armchair, Bravo's heavy head resting on his knee. The air in his silent apartment is filled not with rules, but with the soft sounds of the dog's breathing, a steady rhythm that anchors him. This connection was not forged in a training manual. It was built in the shared silence of countless stakeouts, in the heat of pursuits through dark alleys, and in the quiet comfort of their shared solitude. The coarse texture of Bravo's fur beneath his fingers is a grounding force, a tangible link to something pure and primal that exists beyond any directive. Their history is a tapestry woven with moments of unspoken understanding and absolute trust. You see flashes of it, like lightning illuminating a dark landscape, a tense search in a pitch-black warehouse, the air thick with the scent of mold and danger, where a subtle shift in Bravo's posture, a low growl you could feel more than hear, warned Mark of the hidden threat moments before an ambush. You see them moving as one through a snow-covered forest, their breaths pluming in the frigid air, a silent dance of predator and partner, closing in on a fugitive. In these critical moments, Bravo was never just a dog. He was an extension of Mark's own instincts, a living compass that had never once led him astray. This history of unwavering loyalty is precisely why the dog's current stillness feels like the world tilting off its axis. And so, you feel the crushing weight of what Mark stands to lose in this single unending moment. It is far more than just the success of this operation. His entire career, his very identity as an officer, has been built upon the bedrock of his K9 unit's flawless record. He is the standard, the man whose bond with his partner is held up as the ultimate example of control and synergy. Now, under the silent, judging eyes of his squad, that reputation is crumbling into the same gray dust that chokes the air. You can almost hear their thoughts, the questions and the pity, mixing into a toxic cocktail of shame in his gut. For a man defined by his command, this public failure to control his own partner is a deeper wound than any bullet could ever inflict. The true loss, however, goes deeper than professional pride. What is truly shattering is the foundation of his trust in the one being he believed was an absolute certainty in his life. In a world teeming with lies, violence, and betrayal, Bravo's loyalty was his North Star, a constant, unwavering light in the darkness. You can feel the desperate cascade of questions flooding his mind, a frantic search for a logical explanation in a situation that defies all logic. Is the dog injured? Is he reacting to a sound or a scent beyond human perception? Or is this something far worse, a fundamental break in the sacred connection they shared? The silence from Bravo is not empty. It is a chasm that has opened at his feet, threatening to swallow the one pure thing he held on to. He looks at his partner, truly looks, past the insubordination and the shame. He sees the animal who has slept at the foot of his bed for 6 years, the creature who has faced down gunfire without flinching to protect him. The building shudders again, a low groan of tortured steel, and the instinct to obey the evacuation order screams in his mind. But then you see it, a subtle shift in his own eyes. The rigid certainty of the rulebook is colliding with the fierce, unwavering history of his love for this dog. Bravo hasn't moved. His gaze remains locked on that insignificant pile of rubble, a silent testament to a purpose that Mark cannot comprehend. And in that frozen moment you realize a choice is being made, one that will redefine the very lines he has built his entire world upon. A sharp, piercing whistle cuts through the air, a silver blade of sound designed to slice through any chaos and recall the most disciplined of soldiers. You hear it, a final, desperate attempt by Mark to reassert the order that has defined their world, but this time, the sound doesn't find its target. It hangs in the dust-filled atmosphere and then dies, utterly ignored. Instead of returning, Bravo breaks. The stillness shatters into a sudden, explosive movement. It's a lunge, a blur of black and tan fur propelled by a force you can't comprehend. The frozen statue has come to life, but not in obedience. He moves with a purpose so alien, so contradictory to his years of conditioning, that it feels like watching a star reverse its course in the sky. The leash is ripped from Mark's slackened grip, a final, physical severing of his control. You watch, holding your breath, as Bravo hurls himself across the treacherous landscape of debris. His path is not toward the safety of the perimeter, the logical line of retreat that protocol demands. He doesn't move toward the last known location of their target, the objective of the entire operation. Instead, he becomes a projectile of pure, unadulterated will, aimed at a dark and seemingly insignificant pile of twisted rebar and fractured concrete blocks. It's a forgotten corner of the collapse, a place of shadows and ruin that holds no strategic value in the human world. This single, decisive action is a rejection of every command he has ever learned, a complete betrayal of the tactical map in Mark's mind. He is no longer following orders, he is drawing a new map with his own body, and you have no idea where it leads. His arrival at the pile of rubble is not a cautious investigation, it is an assault. You hear the visceral sound of his claws scrabbling against stone and metal, a frantic, desperate rhythm that becomes a new, urgent drumbeat in the symphony of disaster. Dust and small pebbles fly from the spot, kicked up by the sheer ferocity of his digging. His powerful shoulders, honed for pursuit and restraint, now work like pistons, bunching and releasing as he tears at the wreckage with a primal fury. This is not the methodical, patient work of a trained search and rescue dog. This is something else entirely, an act of raw, instinctual urgency, as if he is trying to claw through the very skin of the earth to reach a heart that is still faintly beating beneath. Then comes the sound. A bark erupts from deep within Bravo's chest, a sound that vibrates through the soles of your feet. It is completely unlike the sharp, aggressive reports he uses to signal a threat, or the focused, repetitive alerts for a narcotics find. This is a deep, resonant call, a sound that is less an accusation and more a desperate announcement. You recognize it not as a bark of attack, but as a bark of rescue, a primal signal sent into the crushing silence of the concrete, a promise to whatever is buried below that help has arrived. It hangs in the air, a raw and beautiful note of hope in a place of utter despair, and it completely rewrites the meaning of his disobedience. He isn't breaking a rule, he is answering a higher law. For Sergeant Mark Sullivan, this is the moment the ground beneath his feet gives way. The entire architecture of his world, built on the unshakable pillars of protocol and obedience, has just been demolished by the one creature he believed was its cornerstone. You can see the conflict playing out across his face, a storm of confusion, shock, and a dawning, terrifying glimmer of understanding. The years of training, the endless drills, the absolute certainty of the command structure, all of it evaporates in the face of this raw, undeniable display of instinct. His dog is operating on a plane of existence he cannot access, guided by a truth he cannot perceive. The sacred bond between them hasn't just been tested, it has been fundamentally and irrevocably changed, right before your eyes. Bravo's relentless digging is more than an action. It is a question thrown directly at his handler. You can feel the weight of the choice that now settles on Mark's shoulders, heavier than any piece of tactical gear. The path of duty is clear, lit by the cold, fluorescent light of the rulebook. He must restrain his animal, re-establish control, and follow the evacuation orders that are undoubtedly screaming over his radio. That is the world he knows. But another path has just been violently carved into the landscape, a dark, uncertain trail leading into the rubble. To follow it means abandoning everything he has been taught, everything he believes in, and placing his faith entirely in the inexplicable actions of his partner. The future of the mission, and perhaps his very soul, rests on this single impossible decision. As you watch, a single weak ray of afternoon sun penetrates the thick haze of dust, illuminating Bravo in a celestial spotlight. He is a creature of mud and fury, an angel of the ruins, digging with a conviction that defies all human logic. The discarded leash lies coiled in the dirt between him and Mark, a broken chain, a symbol of the command that has failed. It is a perfect, terrible image of chaos giving birth to a new kind of order. Mark takes a single, hesitant step forward, his polished boots crunching on shattered glass. The world shrinks to this one moment, this one choice between the man he was and the man he is about to become, all hinging on the frantic sound of claws scraping against stone. The groaning of the building is no longer a distant threat. It has become a constant, guttural conversation. You feel it in the soles of your boots, a deep vibration that travels up your spine, a physical reminder that time is a luxury you do not have. Every shudder sends a fresh cascade of dust and small debris raining down, each pebble a tick of a clock, counting down to total collapse. The air grows colder, heavier, as if the very sky is pressing down on this wound in the earth. Protocol, that cold, hard text Mark has built his life upon, is screaming in his mind with the blare of 1,000 alarms. Evacuate now. The structure is a dying beast, and its final, crushing exhale could come at any second. To stay is not bravery. It is a calculated, insane risk against a ticking bomb made of concrete and steel. Then, a new sound cuts through the chaos, sharp and metallic. It's the crackle of the radio on Mark's shoulder, a voice slicing through the thick air, cold and devoid of emotion. It's his superior, Captain Davies, a man who sees the world as a series of tactical problems to be solved, with unflinching adherence to the rules. The order is not a suggestion. It is a blade. Sullivan, restrain your animal and pull back. Acknowledge. The words are a direct assault on the fragile, burgeoning hope Bravo's actions have sparked. You can see the conflict tear across Mark's face. On one side, a lifetime of discipline, the ingrained reflex to obey. On the other, the frantic, desperate digging of his partner, an act of faith that defies every line in the manual. The radio crackles again, impatient, demanding an answer. You turn your attention to the other officers, the men who form Mark's squad, his brothers. Their faces are a mixture of confusion and pity, a silent jury delivering a verdict. You can read the judgment in their eyes, as clearly as if it were written on a banner. Your dog failed. Your unit is compromised. You lost control. For these men, who operate in a world of absolutes, Bravo's behavior is a system error, a dangerous malfunction that jeopardizes them all. Their trust in Mark, once as solid as granite, now shows visible cracks. They begin to step back, creating a subtle, unspoken perimeter, not just around the unstable building, but around Mark and his disobedient dog. He is no longer one of them. He is an island of inexplicable defiance, and you can feel his profound isolation in their retreat. But then a small tear in the fabric of their unified judgment. A younger officer, a kid named Evans, whose face is still more boy than man, hesitates. You watch him look from the rigid stances of his fellow officers to the frantic, focused energy of Bravo, and then to Mark's tormented expression. He takes 2 steps forward, closing a fraction of the distance the others have created. He says nothing. The noise is too great for words to matter anyway. Instead, he reaches out and places a hand firmly on Mark's shoulder. It's a simple gesture, a silent vote of confidence that lasts only a second, but in this moment, it is everything. It is a small spark of warmth in the encroaching cold of doubt, a quiet message that says, I don't understand this, but I still trust you. That small act of faith seems to sharpen Mark's focus, pulling him back from the edge of his own confusion. He looks down at his partner, truly seeing him for the first time since the disobedience began. And that's when you see it, a detail so small yet so significant it changes the entire equation. On Bravo's front paws, caked with dust and grime, is a dark, wet smear. It's crimson, a splash of blood staining his black fur, a testament to the violence of his digging. The sight cuts through Mark's training, his shame, and his fear like a laser. This is not a tantrum, this is not a glitch, this is sacrifice. The pain Bravo must be feeling, the raw, shredded state of his paws, is a price he is willingly paying for whatever truth lies beneath that pile of rubble. In that instant, you see the lifetime of rigid discipline within Mark Sullivan shatter into 1,000,000 pieces. The cold logic of the rulebook is consumed by the hot, undeniable fire of faith. His loyalty to his partner, a bond forged in shared danger and silent understanding, finally eclipses his duty to the uniform. The radio on his shoulder might as well be screaming into a void. The judging eyes of his squad are now irrelevant. The groaning of the dying building is just background noise. He takes a deep breath, the gritty air filling his lungs, and he makes a choice. A choice that will forever alter the straight, predictable line of his life. He moves forward, past the broken leash that lies like a dead snake in the dust, and he chooses his dog. Without a word, he drops to his knees beside Bravo. The impact sends a sharp pain through his joints, but you can see on his face that he doesn't feel it. He is now on the same level as his partner, a fellow creature of instinct and dirt. He ignores the jagged edges of twisted metal and the sharp shards of broken concrete. He plunges his bare hands into the debris. The first rock he moves is heavy, scraping his skin raw, but he doesn't flinch. He is no longer Sergeant Sullivan, K-9 handler. He is a man acting on pure, unadulterated belief, digging with a desperation that matches his partner's. His hands, once symbols of control and authority, are now tools of raw hope, defying a direct order to unearth a miracle. The frantic rhythm of digging, a duet of man and dog against the groaning symphony of a dying building, suddenly falters. Amid the scrape of metal on stone and the ragged sound of their breathing, another sound emerges. It's not an explosion or a shout, but its opposite. You can barely perceive it, a ghost of a noise so faint it might be a trick of the dust-filled air. A whimper. A sound as thin as a spider's thread, yet it cuts through the chaos with the sharpness of a razor. Mark freezes, his hands hovering over a jagged piece of concrete, every muscle in his body going rigid. He looks at Bravo, whose ears are pinned back, and the dog's digging intensifies, a frantic confirmation that what he heard was not his imagination. Something is alive down there. He holds his breath, every one of his senses straining, trying to catch the sound again. The world around you seems to fall away into a profound silence, the distant wail of sirens and the deep groans of the structure becoming a muted, irrelevant hum. There it is again, a muffled cry so weak and fragile it feels like the flutter of a bird's wing against your eardrum. It's a sound of pure vulnerability, a tiny spark of life in a vast tomb of concrete and steel. You watch the wave of understanding wash over Mark's face, a powerful current of shock, awe, and a terrifying, brilliant hope. It erases every trace of shame and confusion, replacing it with a singular razor-sharp focus. The insistent crackle of the radio on his shoulder is now just static, a meaningless noise from a world he has already left behind. This is the moment his faith finds its validation. The immense, crushing weight of his insubordination, the decision to defy a direct order from his superior, is lifted from him not by an absolution, but by this tiny, miraculous sound. His virtue, that stubborn, unspoken loyalty to his partner that compelled him to shatter the sacred rules of protocol, has been rewarded in the most absolute way imaginable. You feel the rightness of his choice settle over him, a warm and powerful surge of pure purpose. He didn't choose chaos over order. He chose to believe in an instinct purer than any human law. The blood-matting Bravo's pause is no longer a symbol of frantic disobedience but a sacrament, an offering made in the service of a life no one else knew was there. His movements become a blur of desperate precision. He is no longer just moving debris, he is performing a delicate, high-stakes surgery on the earth itself. Bravo whines, a low, urgent sound, nudging a specific spot with his bloodied muzzle, guiding his human partner. Mark follows, his raw fingers probing gently into a newly cleared crevice. The air that seeps out is cold, and smells of damp soil and something else, something faintly human. His fingertips, scraped and bleeding, brush against a texture that is utterly alien in this landscape of ruin. It is not the cold bite of metal, or the rough grit of stone. It is soft, impossibly soft, and fine, like spun silk tangled in the dirt. His heart hammers against his ribs as he realizes what he has just touched. You watch, holding your own breath as he carefully pulls his hand back from the darkness. He brings his fingers up into the weak, dust-filtered sunlight, uncurling them slowly, as if revealing a priceless artifact. There, lying in his palm, is a small lock of hair. It is long and dark, matted with the gray grime of the collapse, but it is undeniably, heartbreakingly human. The truth of the situation lands, with the force of a physical impact, rewriting the entire narrative of the last hour. Bravo was never disobeying an order. He was answering a higher call, a silent, desperate plea for help that only his pure heart and keen senses could ever have detected. The dog wasn't broken. He was a perfect instrument of compassion, operating on a level of loyalty Mark was only now beginning to comprehend. The fire of shame in Mark's chest is completely extinguished, replaced by a fierce, protective inferno. He glances back at his squad, his brothers, who stand frozen, their faces a canvas of stunned disbelief. The pity and judgment have vanished, replaced by a raw, speechless awe. He doesn't need to shout orders or offer explanations. His actions now have a moral clarity that cuts through the noise and protocol. He is no longer a rogue officer defying command. He is a rescuer executing the most important mission of his life, a mission given to him by his dog. The groaning building is still a mortal threat, but it is no longer an obstacle. It is a challenge, a final guardian that must be overcome to reach the life hidden within its broken heart. In this moment, you finally understand the profound truth of what has happened. Bravo, in his stubborn, silent defiance, was communicating a reality that existed beyond the limits of human perception. He saw past the tactical maps, the strategic objectives, and the cold logic of evacuation protocols. His world is one of primal certainties, the scent of life, the sound of fear, the sacred duty to protect the helpless. In his greatest act of disobedience, he was demonstrating the ultimate form of loyalty, not to a man's command, but to life itself. As Mark digs with a renewed, desperate energy, you realize he is not just unearthing a victim. He is digging his way back to the very soul of the bond he thought he had lost, finding a trust that is now more profound and unbreakable than any steel. The air around you becomes a vortex of focused energy, a whirlwind of desperation and hope. Your heart hammers against your ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the low groan of the dying building. You watch Mark and Bravo work as one organism, a single being driven by a singular purpose, their movements a frantic but synchronized dance of rescue. The scrape of his hands against concrete is a raw, rhythmic sound, a counterpoint to the dog's ragged panting. Dust fills his lungs, a gritty fire that burns with every breath, but he doesn't stop. His muscles scream, his fingers are numb and bleeding, but the pain is a distant echo. The only reality is the next rock, the next piece of twisted metal, the next inch of progress toward the fragile life buried beneath their feet. Every second feels like an eternity, a lifetime lived in the space between heartbeats. Then, a shift. A large slab of concrete, precariously balanced, finally gives way under their combined assault. It slides with a deafening screech of metal on stone, revealing not a body, but a void. A pocket of darkness, a small, miraculous cavern of survival carved into the heart of the collapse. A different air rushes out to meet you, stale and cold, carrying the faint, metallic scent of blood, and the unmistakable, earthy smell of fear. Mark freezes, his flashlight beam cutting a sharp, trembling line through the absolute blackness. It illuminates a small, still form, curled into a tight ball, a splash of pink from a child's jacket, the only color in a world of gray. For one terrifying, heart-stopping moment, you are confronted with the crushing silence of the tomb, the horrifying possibility that you are too late. But then you see it, a flicker of movement so small it could be a trick of the light. A tiny chest rises, then falls, a shallow, almost imperceptible breath. Life. The word is a silent explosion in Mark's mind, a force that propels him forward with a renewed, almost supernatural strength. He works with a tenderness you never thought possible, his large, calloused hands, now raw and bleeding, moving with the delicate precision of a watchmaker. He clears the last of the debris away from the small figure, his every touch a silent promise of safety. The child, A little girl remains unconscious, her face a pale, serene moon in the surrounding darkness, her dark hair fanned out like a silken halo in the dust. She is a fragile masterpiece of survival, a testament to the instinct that refused to abandon her. He slips his arms beneath her, gathering her up from her concrete cradle. The weight of her small body is both impossibly light and profoundly heavy, a physical manifestation of the responsibility he now holds. As he rises, turning to carry her back into the hazy afternoon light, you see the transformation is complete. He is no longer Sergeant Mark Sullivan, a man bound by rules and regulations. He is something older, more primal, a guardian stepping out of the underworld, carrying a rescued soul back into the land of the living. As he emerges from the wreckage, the frantic shouts of his fellow officers die in their throats, replaced by a wave of stunned, reverent silence. All eyes are on him, on the small child nestled against his chest, a quiet miracle in the midst of the chaos. He lays her down gently on a flat, cleared surface as the medics rush forward, their faces a mixture of urgency and awe. But Mark holds up a single, trembling hand, a silent plea for one more second. In that sacred pause, the little girl's eyelids flutter. They open slowly, revealing eyes the color of a stormy sky, wide with a confusion that has not yet become fear. She doesn't cry. There is no scream of terror. There is only a profound, surreal stillness that settles over the entire scene, a calm at the eye of the storm. You feel the tension that has been a knot in your own chest finally begin to unravel, releasing in a slow, shuddering exhale. This is the silence after the thunder, the moment the world holds its breath in the presence of a miracle. The little girl's gaze moves past Mark's tear-streaked face, past the circle of stunned officers, and finds the one who called for her in the darkness. Bravo stands a silent vigil, his body trembling with exhaustion, his black fur matted with dust and his own blood. A soft whine escapes his throat, a sound of pure, gentle recognition. The child, this tiny survivor named Sophia, slowly lifts her hand. It is not the hand of her human rescuer she seeks. Her small, dusty fingers reach out and come to rest on Bravo's torn, bloodied muzzle. It is a touch of impossible grace, a silent, perfect communion between the saved and the Savior. It is a benediction, an absolution, a quiet thank you that speaks a language older and truer than any human word. In that single, breathtaking gesture, the dam inside Mark Sullivan finally breaks. Silent tears you didn't even know he was holding back begin to trace clean paths through the layers of grime on his cheeks. It is not a sound of grief, but of a profound, overwhelming release. At the girl's touch, Bravo seems to understand that his mission is truly over. A long, shuddering sigh escapes his powerful chest, and his legs, which have held him strong through impossible odds, finally buckle beneath him. He collapses into the dust, not from injury, but from the bone-deep exhaustion of a battle won. The image is burned into your soul. The kneeling sergeant, the breathing child, and the fallen dog. A perfect, silent tableau of compassion triumphing over protocol. You see him in the quiet days that follow, after the thunder of the collapse has faded into a persistent echo in the city's memory. The man of straight lines and sharp corners is gone, his internal architecture demolished and rebuilt on a new foundation. You watch him at home, the Spartan apartment now feeling less like a barracks and more like a sanctuary. His polished boots sit by the door, but his attention is elsewhere. He sits for hours in his worn armchair, his hand resting gently on Bravo's flank, feeling the steady rhythm of his partner's breathing. The silence is no longer about control, it is about communion. He learned in the dust and the chaos that the most important structures are not built from protocol and steel, but from the invisible, unbreakable sinews of trust that connect one living heart to another. Bravo is no longer K9 Unit 73, a designation in a database. He has become a myth, a living legend. You see his noble face, captured in a news photograph from that day, looking out from screens and front pages, his eyes carrying the weight of a knowledge beyond human understanding. He is now simply Bravo, the hero of Chicago, a name spoken with a reverence usually reserved for saints. The city, which for Mark was once a grid of potential threats and tactical zones, has transformed into a community that has taken his dog as its own icon. You see his likeness spray-painted on brick walls, a guardian angel in black and tan fur, a powerful symbol of hope, whose greatest act was not in following an order, but in obeying a higher, more compassionate law that no one else could hear. The story ignites a fire in the city's soul, an astonishing and humbling outpouring of gratitude. You witness donations flooding the K9 unit, not from sterile corporate accounts, but from the pockets of ordinary people. Collection jars appear on diner counters, school children hold bake sales, and online fundraisers are overwhelmed by a torrent of small, heartfelt contributions. This isn't just about money for better equipment or new training facilities. It's a profound, collective thank you. It is an entire city acknowledging that these dogs are not tools or assets, but partners and protectors with an instinct that can sometimes see more clearly than any human eye. Because of Bravo's defiance, a city has come to understand that the truest service often comes from a place beyond any command, a place of pure, unshakable loyalty. The ripples of that day spread through the department, slowly eroding the cold, hard certainty of the rulebook. You see it in the eyes of Mark's squad, where the memory of pity has been replaced by a deep and unwavering respect. The story of Bravo becomes the new standard, a cautionary tale whispered in briefing rooms about the limits of human strategy and the profound wisdom of animal instinct. Captain Davies, the voice of protocol on the radio that day, makes a quiet visit not to issue a reprimand, but to stand in humbled silence before the dog who proved him wrong. The incident forces a fundamental re-evaluation of the entire K9 program, building a new philosophy founded not on the rigid principle of control, but on the fluid, powerful, and ultimately life-saving grace of absolute trust. Weeks later, you find Mark standing before a new city landmark, a testament to the day the world shifted on its axis. On the side of a tall brick building, a massive mural has been painted, capturing the iconic image of the kneeling sergeant, the rescued child, and the exhausted dog. Sophia and her family are there, and the little girl, now a vibrant whirlwind of life, throws her arms around Bravo's neck in a joyful embrace. In this quiet moment, you see the full measure of Mark's transformation. The man who once found safety in the cold, hard lines of regulations now finds it in the warmth of a child's laughter and the steady presence of his partner. He has learned that true discipline is not about never breaking the rules, but about knowing which rules must be broken for the sake of a human heart. The bond forged in the darkness of the rubble becomes a lifeline. You see how Sophia's existence becomes woven into the fabric of Mark and Bravo's lives. She visits often, her bright, cheerful voice filling the quiet corners of his once somber apartment. She reads stories to Bravo, her small hands stroking his fur, a constant, living reminder of the miracle he brought forth from the dust. For Mark, she is more than just the girl he saved. She is the physical embodiment of his own rebirth, the beautiful, undeniable proof that his leap of faith landed him on solid ground. Through her, he learns a new language of vulnerability and joy, lessons far more profound than any he ever learned in training. She is the living legacy of his choice, the beautiful scar that proves he healed stronger than before. In the end, you see Mark Sullivan on a quiet evening, standing on a hill as the sun bleeds across the Chicago skyline. Bravo stands beside him, no leash between them, their connection now a current of unspoken understanding that flows freely. The man who once saw the world as a series of tactical problems to be solved now sees a vast, complex tapestry of interconnected lives. He has finally understood the most universal truth, a lesson delivered by his dog in a moment of silent defiance. Loyalty is not measured by blind obedience or the flawless execution of a command. It is measured in the courageous, desperate acts of love that defy the world, that break every rule, to dig through the ruins and protect the innocent. He is finally a man at peace, redefined not by his uniform, but by the one order he was brave enough to ignore. And so you are left with the echo of that day, a story that settles not in your mind, but deeper, in the quiet chambers of your heart. You think of Mark Sullivan, a man who built a fortress of rules around himself, only to find true safety by tearing it all down with his own bare hands. You see him not as he was, a rigid silhouette against a world of chaos, but as he is now, redefined by the warmth of a child's gratitude and the steady, silent presence of his partner. This story is more than just a chronicle of a rescue. It is a map that shows how the straight, predictable lines of duty can be irrevocably and beautifully redrawn by the unexplainable, powerful curve of love. It forces you to question the very foundations of what you consider strength. You come to understand that the world is not saved by perfect plans or unflinching adherence to protocol. It is saved by the small, courageous acts of defiance that choose compassion over command. Bravo's story becomes a universal parable, a lesson whispered on the wind that swirls through the city's canyons. It teaches that sometimes the most profound wisdom doesn't come from a voice of authority crackling over a radio, but from a low whine in the dark, from a truth felt in the bones, rather than understood by the brain. You realize that true loyalty is not about following the person who holds the leash. It is about protecting the fragile heartbeat that no one else has the courage or the clarity to hear, even if it means walking through fire to do it. This tale asks you to look for the silent heroes in your own world, the ones who operate on a different frequency. They are the guardians who do not need orders to know what is right, who are guided by an internal compass of pure, unshakable empathy. They are the ones who will dig through the rubble of your worst days, not because they were told to, but because their very soul commands it. Bravo's defiance was not an act of rebellion, but an act of profound justice, a reminder that the most sacred laws are not written in books, but are etched into the heart of every living creature that is capable of love. His story is a testament to an instinct more powerful than any human strategy, a force that binds us all. You see that mural, a silent monument on a brick wall, and you recognize it as more than just art. It is a promise. It is a city's vow to remember that its greatest protectors are not always the ones with the loudest voices or the shiniest badges. Sometimes they are the ones with 4 paws, a coat of black and tan fur, and a heart so true it can hear a whisper for help through a mountain of concrete and steel. The image of the sergeant, the child, and the dog becomes a new kind of trinity, a symbol of hope that tells every person who sees it that even in the deepest darkness, in the suffocating dust of absolute despair, a miracle is always possible if you are brave enough to listen to the right voice. And what of your own life? You are surrounded by your own structures, your own sets of rules and expectations that promise safety and order. You build these walls brick by careful brick, believing they will protect you from the chaos that waits outside. But this story leaves you with a lingering, powerful question. What is the one truth, the one bond, the one silent call for help that would give you the strength to break your own rules? What is the love so profound that it would compel you to kneel in the dust and dig with your bare hands, defying every logical command your mind screams at you? Every one of us has a Bravo within, an instinct for compassion that waits for its moment to disobey. The ultimate lesson is not about dogs or police officers. It is about the fundamental nature of connection itself. It is about the courage to trust in something beyond the visible, beyond the provable, beyond the logical. It is the faith that Mark placed in his partner, a faith that was rewarded not with a simple success, but with a complete and total rebirth of his own soul. He learned that the strongest chain is not one of control, but one of mutual trust, a bond that gives you the freedom to follow not an order, but a purpose. And in that purpose, you find a strength that no collapse, no failure, and no amount of chaos can ever truly break. It becomes the bedrock on which you rebuild everything. So now, as this story settles into silence, we invite you to carry its echo forward. Look around you for the acts of loyalty that defy easy explanation, for the moments of grace that bloom in the most broken of places. Share this story, not just as a tale of a heroic dog, but as a testament to the power of instinct, compassion, and the unbreakable bonds that make us truly human. Ask yourself and those you love what it means to be truly loyal, and consider that it might have less to do with obedience and more to do with the courage to answer the heart's most desperate call. Because in the end, the most important orders are the ones that are never spoken aloud, and the greatest heroes are the ones who are brave enough to listen.